Welcome to Business Nigeria, where we bring you the latest happenings and analysis in the world of business spanning across the country. I am Tolu Lokpe Ogunjobi. And the federal government says it has implemented 79% of the 2016 budget so far, saying it has spent about 3.6 trillion naira, that's about 11.4 billion US dollars, out of the full year budget of 6 trillion naira, that's about 19.2 billion US dollars, approved for the 2016 fiscal year. The Office of the Media Advisor to the Minister of Budget and Planning puts this breakdown to 79% performance of the total budget for the 3 quarters up to September. Of the 2.4 trillion naira, that's 7.6 billion US dollars so far released for capital, non-debt recurrent and service vote expenditures, a total of 1.1 trillion naira, equivalent to $3.5 billion, has been put out in domestic and foreign debt services expenditure. This includes 44 billion naira, that's about $139 million, transferred to the sinking fund to retire maturing obligations on bond issues to contractors. Now joining us via Skype is a policy analyst, Ayo Oyalowo, to give more insight into this. Now, Ayo, good to have you. Now, what is your take on this report from the Ministry of Budget stating that Nigeria's budget's performance is put at 79% as it stands? What do you make of it? Well, I think we're going to connect back to Ayo. We're having some challenges there now. Well, let's look at other stories now as we go back to the thrust of the topic of the day. Africa must be strategic in developing climate-smart business to take advantage of the emerging green economy as a solution to climate change. TVC News' Oluchi Ugochi Oluigbo reports that this was a submission of experts ahead of this year's conference of the parties, COP22. Details in this report.
Not a discussion around air quality, climate change, and going green. Businesses play an important role in the transition to a green economy, and that role will be discussed at COP22.
Of topmost importance in the discussion to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is that businesses have to bankroll transition to a greener economy, focusing on not just profits but on people and the planet. Therefore, it is important to bring them aboard the green flight. As part of this year's conference of the parties, COP22, the business community and financial sector, especially private corporations, are expected to join the negotiations on sustainable development.
We need the private sector to be more and more involved, even in the discussion. There is huge opportunities in this new green economy that the private sector in Africa can play a role, not only in energy, in water issue, in food security, in recycling. So all these are the sectors who are linked to climate change.
And talking new businesses and eco-ideas that will drive this goal, Hub Africa and Tech22 are platforms created to promote green startups, eco-ideas and sustainable innovations from Africa at the COP and beyond. This is to build new green businesses for the future.
Hub Africa is every year a huge launch. We receive more than 10,000 entrepreneurs from all the continents and also international. And we give during 2 days all the keys for entrepreneurs. There is the Hub Africa Awards for the best entrepreneurs, the possibility for the startup to pitch their project and to get funds.
But for Africa to be able to sustain this development, the continent must be able to access green financing available for such.
Whatever impact, change impact that the more developed countries have impacted our continent, that the private sector is committed to make sure that all the funds, the climate change, le Fonds Vert, the Green Fund, is properly distributed to our continent.
An estimated 3.4 million people work in eco-industries in the European Union, and the number should be higher for Africa with its large population, vibrant and smart youth if eco-ideas and industries are established and supported to grow into big corporations, and then the cycle of polluting development.
The Central Bank of Nigeria will sell $500 million through FX forwards to banks for onward sales to their customers. The focus of this disbursement is to ensure that manufacturers get the required foreign exchange for the importation of critical raw materials, as well as meeting the pent-up demand for the greenback. The move, which is also aimed at boosting economic activities in the country, would cater to some of the FX demands of manufacturers that want to import plants and machineries, raw materials, and agricultural equipment. A top official of the central bank said banks were notified last week and given till noon today to send the list of FX requests from their customers in the manufacturing sector. Sub-Saharan Africa's telecom service market will be worth $51 billion by 2021, up from $41 billion last year. Mobile services is expected to represent more than 88.4% of the telecom service, according to analysts. Retail telecoms revenue in the region will grow at a compound annual growth rate of 4.1%. The growth in revenue will be driven by population growth, expansion into rural areas, and a higher demand for mobile data services. The Managing Director of Nigerian Ports Authority, Hadiza Bala Usman, has vowed to take decisive measures to resolve the issues of revenue leakages at the Maritime Agency. She is also determined to review the terms and conditions in the concession agreements between operators, service providers, and the NPA. These indications were given during a two-day tour of the Eastern Port facilities in Port Harcourt and Onne. TVC News correspondent Ifunanya Eze reports.
During the visit, the NPA executive management team, led by the Managing Director, Hadiza Bala Usman, did an inspection of the several ports facilities and terminals. While evaluating the areas visited, Bala Usman stated that instituting transparency in the system has become the most challenging issue confronting the current management of the Ports Authority. At different meetings with the agency's workforce and stakeholders, the need for a competitive port system through enhanced port operations and productivity was emphasized.
Regarding revenue leakages, we're working to have all revenues that are meant for the federal government to go into the Treasury single account. We have commenced that program with the collection of service board charges, which we'll be doing with effect from next month. It's not acceptable for any terminal operator not to comply with the provisions of the concession agreement, whereby you're required to deploy infrastructure deployment. We'll take the effective requirement as it relates to any penalty clauses and termination clauses as required.
She highlighted that management would prioritize debt issues and collection, noting that third-party contractual agreements on port services would be reassessed.
We're reviewing all those relationships. It's ongoing. We're going to review to ensure that all such payments that are skewed in favor of a service provider are stopped. We're mindful of the fact that there needs to be synergy and there's an overlap whereby that service is being provided, and we're reviewing the relationship to ensure that those payment terms are looked into. This is the first step in ensuring that such payments, as you mentioned, that there's disparity in revenue collections and disparity in mode of collection would be effected within the shortest period.
The NPA Managing Director also inaugurated the connection of Onne Port to the national grid. Ifunanya Eze, TVC News, Port Harcourt.
Now going to our topic of the day now. Joining us via Skype is a policy analyst, Ayo Yalowo. Many thanks for your time, Ayo. Now, Ayo, my first question will be, what's your take on the reports that on Nigeria's budget for 2016, 79%, that's what has been put as the performance at 79%. Straight, what do you think about the implementation at that rate being placed by the Ministry of Budget?
Well, for now, we'll have to put it to a test to be sure that what the ministry is telling Nigerians is the truth. Because we need to understand the parameters we have to get from them, where those monies have been spent. Although for the capital project, I think they have done excellently well. I am aware of about 700 billion has been spent, and we are still counting. So on capital project, I can say we are seeing some of the works being done. We are seeing contractors going back to site. But we need to do more because we are in a situation of recession, and the best way out of this situation is to continue to spend. You have to spend your way out of this recession so as to avoid a more terrible situation called stagflation. So we have to keep spending. So for me, I think they have done well in that area, but they need to do more.
Oh, interesting. Now, earlier we had a chat with a budget analyst, Eze Onyekpere, who also gave his views. I would like you, Ayo, to listen to what his position on this issue.
It's not about talking of 79% budget performance. It's about talking of the fundamentals that should constitute expenditure that touches on the lives of the people. Very well, salaries and remuneration will have to be paid, overhead will have to be drawn down. But Nigerians are more interested in the capital budget, which is about 1.65 trillion. And if you add statutory transfers, the capital component of it, we are talking of money in excess of 1.8 trillion. And so far, what they have released out of this money is 700 and something billion, less than 50% performance in terms of the capital budget. And you recall that the capital budget, at the last tranche of it was just announced, the release of the last tranche was just announced a couple of weeks ago. So in essence, it's not about just giving an overall picture. The part of it that touches most on the lives of the people, which is the capital expenditure, has been very, very poorly implemented. And this is in accordance with the tradition in previous years. So nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, and there's no reason for us to start clapping about a very poor performance.
I don't know if you listened to that. You heard what? You did hear him.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. His position is that he's saying it's poorly implemented and all that. But my next question to you will be, Nigerians want to see food on their table. They want to go out. They want to meet their daily needs. That is what I think Nigerians want to see at this time. Talking about the budget implementation and the focus on some capital projects, do you see this as a step in the right direction?
That is why, if you listen, I was saying earlier that we have to spend our way out of this recession. And how do you do that? If you spend on capital project, then the contractors will move back to site. When they are in site, they will employ engineers, employ masons, employ even ordinary people who will do the job. So all these people will earn money. All their dependents will get money. So ultimately, there will be, this is spending, that person is spending, then there will be money in the system, because we already have an inflation in place. We do not want to have a situation that also there is no money, such that you now have high cost of goods, no money to even purchase them. So money must be pushed into the system via capital project, so that will be able to encourage spending, so that when you spend, you are able to spend your way out of recession. So for me, capital project must be the key. And that is why I think people must listen to what the government is saying about borrowing. Most people that have been against the federal government borrowing have not taken time to study what they are borrowing. Government is not borrowing cash to be wasted. Most of what we are looking at is counterpart funding for projects. And those funding will be over a period of 3 years. Most of them tied to capital and specific capital projects. So that is what the government must do. Chinese will not give you cash, but they will give you projects. So for me, these are places that Nigerians must look to, so as to be able to increase ability to spend. So if you're able to do that, you can now say you can push money to the system. When you push money to the system, people have money. Then you will be able to avoid the next stage where we will have naturally be, which is the stage of stagflation from this current recession.
Interesting. Now, Ayo, I want you to look at it also in this perspective. Now, the budget, which we are at the moment we are diversifying. Yes, we're on the road to diversify, but we still at least depend one way or the other on crude oil proceeds. Now, we all know the issue with regards to pipeline issues around the Niger Delta area, which has actually reduced our production as it stands today. And the budget was predicated on 2.2 million barrels per day, that's of crude oil. Now we have a shortfall in that aspect. So at least, obviously, we have a little bit of shortfall when it comes to the budget, getting revenue to fund our budget. Now, let's look at it this way. These are also challenges affecting the budget. What do you make of this? Because it's very important that we fund, and that's why we're also looking at the borrowing, because part of the money borrowed will be used to augment this budget. So, in your way, how do you look at this side by side?
That is why I am worried at the way analysts are looking at it. If you say diversification, it's not a flip switch that you just do pump and then you diversify. It takes a while. So people need to understand that if you have been operating a system where over 40, 50 years, you have depended on a particular product, that is the crude oil, you cannot wake up tomorrow and say, I want to diversify and now stop looking at crude oil. Now, the challenge is the fact that while you are diversifying, you still must continue to do what you used to do until other areas of the economy is now boosted to the point where they can also side by side complement income from crude oil. Unfortunately, it is not happening because some people are being sponsored to make life difficult for this government. As I speak to you, I from my own analysis, we are doing maybe around or even less than 1 million barrels per day. That automatically will affect you. No government in this world will lose 70% of its resources, its income, and we don't have problem. We are losing over 70% of our income on a daily basis. Automatically, we're going to have problem. So crude oil, while we are diversifying for crude oil, we cannot close our eyes to all these saboteurs and economic scavengers causing problems for the country. That is why we are having these challenges. Yes, we will diversify. Yes, we will look at other areas of economy. Yes, we will look at other areas of making money. But while we are doing that, we still cannot close our eyes to the fact that we've done something for 50-something years. You cannot overnight change it. The challenges of the Avengers and other people bombing pipeline are enormous. And it is one of the major reasons why we are having these huge challenges in our system.
I totally agree with you. Many have said it's difficult for some people to adapt to this change, which we are talking about. Now, you threw your weight behind the issue of borrowing. I heard you say that you mentioned that in your first submission, talking about the recent plan to borrow like 29.9 billion US dollars, for some projects. Now, in your words, you talked about some partnership and all that, because some analysts have also argued that how do we intend to pay some of this back? It's also very important that we don't mortgage our future. What do you think?
You see, that is why it is good that people need to understand the situation before making comments. I have understand that they are not borrowing us cash. Majority of the borrowing is tied to counterpart funding. The funding will come in the form of railways, road, and other projects. Okay. If you borrow for capital expenditure, automatically the project will pay itself back. It is where we've been having problem in the past is that people collect money, the money doesn't even get here, they share it, and they steal it. Look at what happened in the borrowing for arms and ammunition a few years ago, where people just sat down as if they were sharing lunch and shared Nigerian money, and now that has become another loan. Now, this is not what's going to happen in this issue. What is happening now is that whatever money the government said they are borrowing is over a period of time, and it is tied specifically to project. They will not, most of it will not come as cash. Most of it will come as funding for capital project, will be tied to project. Therefore, when you borrow in such manner, you are able to pay back because the project will pay back itself. And you must also understand that when you are borrowing in this manner, you are also creating jobs. You are creating jobs because when you are building bridges, building roads, and all those other things, you will employ people. A lot of people will be working on some of these projects. So it's a whole new dimension to it. And for me, I support it wholeheartedly. as long as everything is followed according to the letter of the word that is being that on which those contracts are awarded, it's not a problem at all, and it is tied to a period of time, tied to a specific project. For me, it's a good one.
Indeed, if it's followed to the letter. And before I let you go, Ayo, now back to the 79% implementation given to us by the budget. Now, just like many have said, the budget was signed just in May, and a few months ago. Some are saying this huge percentage of implementation is worrisome. That how did we come about it? Though I know some addition and subtractions have been done for us to get to where we stand. Compared to what we've had before now, what do you think about this 79% at this time particularly? Do you see us really at that point?
Yes, like I said, they need to bring out the breakdown before we can finally critique what they have done. We need to see the breakdown step by step, unit by unit, and area by area. That's where we can now say, okay, we are truly at this percent. I don't want to just talk blindly, either condemn or praise them. I need to say where we are. But for me, like I keep saying, I have seen a lot of road projects being implemented. At least the one that leads to my own town, Ogbomoso, is being fixed finally now. And for me, it's a plus. And I can tell you, there are other ones I've seen in the north. And I also did a journey recently. I traveled through the East-West Road. I saw work being done on some areas. So yes, you may not see them immediately, but it will manifest over time. For the capital projects, that is, because I don't know other areas. For the capital expenditure, I have seen roads, I have seen construction, massive one happening even within Abuja here. The one that leads to the airport road where
we're having some challenge.
This afternoon, I saw works being done in the middle of that road. So you can see work being done.
Ayo Oyalo, the policy analyst there, giving his. I must thank you very much for joining us on Business Nigeria. Thank you for your submission on the topic of the day. Thank you so much, Ayo.
Thank you so much.
Ayo Oyalo there giving his views on budget implementation and also some issues surrounding the Nigerian economy. Well, finally on the show, crude oil prices are down again in the global market due to oversupply of the commodity by producing nations. Now, the London market, the Brent trades for $49 per barrel. For the OPEC basket, price drops to $47 per barrel. That's our package for you today on Business Nigeria. I am Tolu Lokpe Ogunjobi. Join us for another time for more insightful analysis. On behalf of the entire production crew, I must say thank you for watching. I'll leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands today. Bye for now.